Hi there, my name's Charles Sabo, and we're here on day 10 of a 23-day seminar on the book of the Revelation of Jesus Christ. I'll be doing chapter 9 today, so there's an introduction and 8 chapters before this on YouTube. This will be chapter 9 and the 10th video on YouTube for you to watch. I am doing a webinar to reveal what the Lord has taught me, and I'm teaching what He's taught me. I'm currently writing this book, which I'll be teaching from. I'm in the process or in the middle of writing chapter 19 right now, and so this will be chapter 9. If you've saw the previous 9 videos, you've learned quite a bit up to this point, and so the chapter 9 will fall right in place for you. If I start into this with you and you haven't seen the first 9 videos, then chapter 9 is going to be like, what? I'll go back. I'll try to explain some details as I go, because I know that you could be lost without me explaining. But in the theology of all things, I try to explain as thorough as I can, because it's important to me that it's detailed. I've been learning for years, and I have to have complete explanations, and I have to have complete confidence in the knowledge that it's true. Otherwise, I won't teach it. And so everything I've come up with here, when I say come up with, the Lord reveals to me through the Holy Spirit, and I write it down. And I do a thorough hermeneutics and exegesis to when I do these, and you'll see as I go. So here we are. I'm going to show you the PDF file of the book. You see there's the previous chapter. Here's chapter 9, and this is starting on page 131. So here we go. I'm going to read. This is an introduction to the chapter, and I'll probably stop here and now and then and show my ugly face and explain something to you and then go back. So that's how it's going to work. So chapter 9 begins with the 5th trumpet judgment, which is to be blown by the 5th cherub angel. All right. The timeline is still unfolding on the first day of the second half of the 7 years of the 70th week of Daniel. The triple warning was made from above by a cherub angel, and the warning was to the remaining people still alive on the earth because of what the final 3 trumpet judgments will bring. So go back up here to chapter 8, verse 13. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Well, woe, woe, woe is translated as warning, warning, warning in the English. And so the warning is because of the trumpets of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. Okay, so it's a warning. All right, triple warning for the 3 trumpets yet to sound. And so those last 3 are brutal. And so there's the warning. I'll continue. The 5th trumpet will bring a 5-month terror upon the earth, which will have never been experienced ever before. Though the 5th and 6th trumpets will have sounded one right after another, the chapter lays out details which will happen as a result of those trumpets over a duration of time and series of events. The 7th trumpet judgment is blown right after the 6th, which will still be at the midpoint of 7 years. That's day 1261. There's 2,520 days of the 7 years. That's 360 day years times 7 is 2,520. Half would be 1,260 days. So the second half is the second 1,260 days. Well, if you've already been through the first half, 1,260 days, the first day of the second half would be day 1,261. All 7 trumpet judgments are blown in succession without any time, any of the remaining 1,260 days elapsing. All right, so it's day 1. The delays and woes correlate with stoppages for declarations in heaven, which still keep the timeline moving. The book of Revelation is on a timeline, and I explain through various points what day it is of the timeline, and it's done via logic and what is being told. There are disturbing images of creatures being called locusts being released at the midpoint of the 7 years, as John's description of these locusts are so very close to Joel's descriptions of the great and strong people of Joel 2, verse 2 through 9. They may be literal descriptions. I should take away the may. They are literal descriptions. Thus, allegory may not be actually used in descriptions. I'm using may because I always leave the possibility I'm wrong, but I'm not. And I'll tell you that I'm going to come back to you here. One must understand that in prophecy, God uses literal imagery and allegorical imagery. Allegorical is figurative, so to speak, is the best way to describe it, imagery. So you have to determine what's literal and what's allegorical. In the book of Revelation, you'll see both. Now, very seldom, it has happened once, I think, so far, will you find a verse with clauses that one clause has literal and the other clause has allegorical. That's possibly maybe where they should have divided the verse, but didn't. But they relate so close together that the person kept the verses together. But that happens very seldom. And so you have to be able to determine what's literal and what's allegorical. And usually you can determine via what's being stated. Oh, the dragon is doing this. Well, you know that an actual dragon, literal dragon, is not doing it. You know the dragon is Satan. So there's allegory. So then the rest of the verse is going to be allegory. So that's where you come into play in realizing what's being said is allegorical or literal. Okay. So there's a brief theology lesson. So we move on. And the reason why I was saying that is that Joel and John are giving literal descriptions of what they were seeing in their visions, okay? And I'll explain it as we go. Let's read chapter 9, verse 1. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. John recognized the fifth cherub angel blowing the fifth trumpet judgment. Now, I'll give you just a brief theology lesson. I've already explained in the other videos, but I'll do it real quick. There's only two types of angels in the entire Bible. The two types are cherubim angels and seraphim angels. That's plural. Cherub angel or seraph angel. The seraphim are only ever around God's throne. You'll never see a seraphim away from God's throne, ever. The cherubim go away from God's throne because they're his messengers. And you'll see in the Greek, it's called angelos. That just doesn't mean angel. It means messenger. And so the translators turn it into angel. You get it from the Greek, obviously. And so you must understand that that's what it means. And so please understand that as we go. So let's go back to what we're talking about here. So in here we have a cherub angel, which is one away from God's throne. So it's a messenger. So here, if you look in the Greek, this is angelos. So you know. And the trumpet had blown, and he saw a star, which in the Greek is aster, fall from heaven to the earth. Now we should understand that allegorically, a star is a cherub angel. Notice there is a pronoun, him, referencing back to the star, as if to be a male gender. And to him, the previous noun is the star. So the star is a him. This doesn't go back to this angel. This goes back to the star that was falling from the earth to the bottomless pit. Why would he give the fifth angel the key when the star was coming down with the key to the bottomless pit? Him was given the key to the bottomless pit. The star, the aster, was given the key to the bottomless pit. All right? So you have to do your hermeneutics correctly using what is given to you. We should be able to confirm that it is a cherub angel by referencing to Revelation 20, verse 1, where a cherub angel is is to once again come down from heaven with the key to the bottomless pit. It's not a star. He actually calls it an angel in Revelation 20, verse 1. So, you might say allegory here. Star is allegorical for angel, but it's to be understood that there's an angel, it's literal. Fall from heaven is going to be literal. Giving the key to the bottomless pit is literal. All right? Okay? It's theology. It's past theology spoken by Jesus. Okay? It should be understood the key was given to him by Jesus Christ, who holds the keys to heaven and hell, the bottomless pit. Now, once again, bottomless pit is literal. It's a bottomless pit, is what it is. So everything is literal in here. So the star is understood as being also means a cherub angel. It's just what is understood in the Bible. So you have to understand, it's not even allegory. I mean, it is literally, he calls this, in Genesis, I believe it's 1, 2, or 3 or something like that. He created the stars. He calls them stars when actually that's at the point where he could very well have created the angels as well. It is only Jesus who has control of when or by whom the pit is opened. All right? And you can find that in Revelation 1:18 and Matthew 16:18. Jesus has the keys to the pit. So this cherub angel was given the key to the bottomless pit by Jesus. Revelation 9:2. And he, being the aster, the star, the angel, opened the bottomless pit, and there arose smoke out of the pit, and as smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Now the cherub angel opened the bottomless pit, hell, just as most have already understood. Hell is burning like a great furnace. The smoke from the furnace is called hell, is bottomless pit, rose into the sky of the entire earth. Okay, so it rose up into the sky. We should know. How did that happen? Oh boy, I got the green here. That'll come off later. There was already a lot of smoke because of the volcanoes, nuclear war that had just happened, and fires burning from the aftermath. Once the pit is open, the smoke will darken the air to an extreme. Okay, is that understood here? That's what's being said here, that the pit is open, and because it's a furnace, so much smoke comes out of that pit. So it's literally opened. Hell is literally opened. Okay, it's not allegory. It's literal. Okay. Now I want to state right here, and I'm going to come back to you now. Sorry, I was in the process of grabbing my drink when I did that. There's going to be instances, Revelation 11, Revelation 13, and Revelation 17, where the beast, the second beast of Revelation 13, or the beast of Revelation 11, declared coming up out of the bottomless pit. The Revelation 13 second beast comes up out of the earth. Revelation 17, that beast comes up out of the bottomless pit. All right. This is the instance where the second beast comes up out of the bottomless pit on day 1261. Please make note of that, because we'll see instances that tells us he came out of the pit. And you'll go, when did that happen? Well, here's when it happened. It happened on day 1261. All right. And I'll show you why and where we can believe that being the case. All right. Verse 3. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. The Lord had previously warned of these events within the books from the Old Testament prophets. Both Isaiah and Joel had written of this, providing us with more details, which were not given to John. Joel 2 verse 2 begins to declare that day, the day of the Lord, will be a day of darkness and gloominess, and day of clouds of thick darkness. Well, gee, now we know what Joel means, because the pit is opened, right? pit, plus the volcanoes that have been going off, the fires, the nuclear war that just happened. I mean, there's a lot of smoke. All right. All right. Joel 2:2. A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong. There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. Joel 2:2. Now, how close is this to what John says? Very close. Joel told the terribleness of the day of the Lord within verses 2 through 11. He began to describe the setting within the first sentence, then proclaimed a concern towards a great and strong people never seen nor will be ever again. I have correlated this section of Joel with Isaiah 13 verses 11 through 16 and Isaiah 24 verses 17 through 20 and Revelation 9 1 through 11, which we're covering now. The similarities between these four prophecies of the Bible are shockingly close. Therefore, I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, and in wrath the Lord's host, and in the day of his fierce anger. Isaiah 13:13. Isaiah speaks of this same event in Isaiah 24:18 through 20. That's the mini apocalypse. When he is addressing the fear of the pit. And some of this I'm actually taking from my book, the Isaiah Bible Commentary, which just went on the market in January, if you're interested. It's a 623-page commentary on the whole entire book of Isaiah. And I'll read Isaiah 24:18. And it shall come to pass that he who flees from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit. So flees from the noise of the pit shall fall into the pit. And he that comes up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the windows from on high are opened, and the foundations of the earth do shake. One can spiritualize this and declare the pit is allegorical or figurative, but the windows of heaven are opened. The supernatural is happening. So Isaiah says that the windows of on high are open. So why would you want to think that it was allegorical when the supernatural is going on here? The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. That's Joel 2:10. Why do the stars withdraw their shining? Because it's so smoky. You can't see them. Now, besides that, one of the seals caused a majority of the stars to fall already, but there's still stars available, because when later on we find that there are stars, like in this verse coming up here with the star, there's certain trumpets that show stars not being able to be seen. That indicates there still were stars left. Take a look at my commentary on Revelation chapter 6 for the commentary on the stars. Let's see. Did I already read that? The heavens will shake and the earth will be removed and will reel to and fro like a drunkard. That's Isaiah 24:20. This correlates with Isaiah 13:13 and Joel 2:10. The pit that these people fall into or try to escape out of, Isaiah 24:18, correlates with the Revelation 9:2 and bottomless pit being opened. All right? It's literal. The pit is open. They're trying not to fall in it. There's noises coming from the pit. They're afraid. They're fleeing. But Joel 2 speaks of a great and strong people which have never been seen before nor after. Looking to Revelation 9:3, these creatures come up out of the bottomless pit, which should be examined closely. Isaiah 13:14. And it shall be as a chased roe, it being the people, and as a sheep that no man takes up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one unto his own land. I think that this should say they, because it's Isaiah's the Hebrew word here gives you a chance to use it, they, and so forth, them. So the translators made this word into it when it actually should say they, and they shall be as a chased roe, the people, because you can see that it is people fleeing. And they shall every turn to his own people, they, and they shall turn. Well, then there should be a they also, shouldn't it? and flee everyone to his own land. All right. So they shall be as a chaste roe and sheep that no man take up. All right. See how I can do the deciphering here just by seeing it. You should be able to do this yourself if you have knowledge of English grammar and pronouns and what have you. You should be able to re-examine things like this and say, whoa, you made a mistake here, Mr. Translator. Because the translators weren't theologians. They didn't know theology. They were very ignorant, as a matter of fact, as I've found out. And so you have to check their translations, their words that they used. Looking back to Isaiah 24:18, concerning Isaiah 13:13, it says, "He that flees from the noise of the pit shall fall into the pit." Remember that back here? The noise they are fleeing from the bottomless pit. They will flee like a chaste roe, as Isaiah 13:14 says, or a gazelle, and as sheep unattended, right, or without shepherd, right? So that's what Isaiah is saying when he says this. Every man of his own people and flee every one of his own land. No man is as a sheep. Well, when God's talking about sheep, it means, there's a spiritual reason to that. It's unintended sheep. They're fleeing without a shepherd. Jesus is our shepherd. And if they don't have Jesus, they have no shepherd. And so they flee every man to his own people. All right? That's theology. That's imagery and theology that you need to understand. You can read in between the lines, the theology that's being conveyed by Isaiah there. They will flee to their own land in fear. They are fleeing from the noise coming from the bottomless pit, but they will end up in the bottomless pit, which will be upon their physical death. They'll go to hell. See the allegory, the irony of that. When I say allegory, I should refrain from saying that because this is literal. There's no allegory here. Some of Isaiah here is going with allegory, describing them as sheep, chaste roe. That's allegory, right? But he's being literal here. All right. So you can see as an example where we got allegory here, and then he goes with literal, the rest of it. So with Isaiah, you'll see things like that. But in Revelation, you won't see it very often. They are fleeing from the noise coming out of the bottomless pit. They will end up in the bottomless pit. This is literal. They will end up in the pit when they die. It's just a theological understanding. They're fleeing the pit, but they'll end up in the pit. But shall fall in the pit, what Isaiah says. He that flees from the noise of the pit shall fall into the pit. So they're fleeing from the locust people. The great and strong locust people is what I'm calling them. But shall fall back in the pit that the locust people are coming out of. Because they're coming from hell. But these people they're fleeing are going to end up there. All right? Theology. These locusts, and the Greek word akris, will come up out of the pit and will be given the power of scorpions. Therefore, they will have a venomous sting. All right? Did you notice in Revelation 9:3, as the power scorpions have on the earth, right? So what do scorpions do on the earth? They sting with venom. And so these locust people, great and strong locust people, Joel calls them great and strong people. Locusts is what John is calling them. They have a venomous sting. Scary, huh? All right, Revelation 9:4. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. So these great and strong locust people are sent by God out of the pit, as a matter of fact, to do God's work. They're not being commanded by Satan. They're being commanded by God. They're doing is what God says. All right? Is that understood? Oh, this is terrible. Oh, our God wouldn't do that. Yeah, this is wrath. This is God's wrath on the wicked. These aren't righteous people being hurt here. The Lord had commanded these great and strong people, locusts, to not hurt that which will be left of the grass, trees, nor growing trees, the growing green things upon the earth. So that God has already destroyed I think it's like 1/3 of the trees, all of the grass at one point, like there might be some more grass growing now, nor any growing green thing. So he's already destroyed like 1/3 of the trees, all of the grass, but grass can regrow, and and he's destroyed many other green trees because he's gotten rid of most of the water supply, underground water supply too. So it's hard for anything to grow to begin with. That's why God's saying, leave it go. There's still people on the earth that will need these things with God's people. And so leave them alone. So the 144,000 have been given this seal of God on their foreheads, as we've already determined from chapter 7. But we have not been told of any others who will have the seal of God. There can only be two conclusions. There will not be any more people of God left on the earth at this time, beside the 144,000, or there are to be others who will become believers and be given the seal of God upon their foreheads as well. So conclusion number 2 is the right one. All right, I'm just giving you the only two possibilities. The second one is the true one. Righteous people. I have the seal of God on my forehead. If you're a Christian, you have the seal of God on your forehead. The 144,000 have the seal of God on their forehead. And anyone that becomes a believer has it as well. The seal of God is righteousness. And when you become righteous, you have his seal on you. It is imagery, you can call it allegory, but it's actually spiritual. Because we know that there will be a remnant of Israel hidden by the Lord until the second coming of Christ, Zechariah 12:10, as well as those who refuse the mark of the beast, Revelation 13. The second conclusion seems to make more sense, so I'm explaining that to you. Those who God protects will be sealed by him upon their foreheads. Those who God protects, twisting my words a little bit. Those who God protects will be sealed by God. This has to be a physically seen seal because the great and strong locust people will have to be able to identify them with the seal viewable on their foreheads. Now, I have to say, it's got to be one of the two conclusions, and I may add that to this paragraph, like I did up here, two conclusions. It's either a literal seal on their foreheads, or each great and strong locust person will be supernaturally given the ability to know who has been saved by God and who hasn't. It's baffling how they will know. How will these great and strong locust people know who's righteous and who's not? They would always have to be a physical mark of some sort for them to see it and go, oh, can't hurt them. Oh, they don't have the mark, gonna hurt them. So it's got to be. It's either that or the mark of the beast is the determining factor. Those who don't have the mark of the beast don't hurt. Those who have the mark of the beast hurt. It could be that, but the mark of the beast is supposed to be stated on this same day these come out. So there's very few people with the mark of the beast at this time on day 1261. We'll move on to verse 5. A little bit of theology there, a little bit of speculation, but it's logic, trying to figure out what logically makes sense, because I can't logically make sense of either one of those, if it's physical, visual seal on their head or not. And these straight and strong locust people, are they seeing it or being told by God who is righteous, who is not? You have to pick or choose there. Which is it? Because we don't know. We won't know until that day. There's nothing in the scriptures here that states one or the other. It just says, all it says is everything here has been literal, right? This has all been literal. So the seal of God on their foreheads, is that literal? It could be. It's between allegory and literal. With me, it's allegory, because I'm one of God's children and I do have the seal of God on my forehead. I am saved by him. Revelation 9:5. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he strikes a man. Man, I live in Arizona, so I've been stung by a scorpion in my past. Even though I was a Christian, I was still stung by a scorpion. So that indicator in Luke 10:19. I mean, I was provoking God's judgment on me in some way, but I got stung and it hurt. It hurt a lot. So the scorpion sting hurts, and so this is definitely torment of a scorpion, and literal torment, and they're going to be in some pain. These great and strong locusts people will be commanded by God to not kill anyone, but shall torment 5 months. Now, I'm going to go on a limb here because there's things that are said here later on that gives you the impression that God takes death away from the planet for 5 months. And I'll show you where you can actually make that, I want to say assumption, make that conclusion. The torment will be stings like a scorpion strike, along with the power of their venom, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Though the days will be 18 hours long, which we determined from the last chapter, chapter 18, the 5 months will seem like 5 years. Though the fifth and sixth trumpets will have sounded one right after another, this chapter lays out details which will happen as a result of these trumpets over a duration of time and series of events. So pay attention. The trumpets are blown in succession, but the sixth trumpet judgment causes death, whereas the fifth trumpet judgment takes away death. So you have to have the 5 months come to pass before the sixth trumpet judgment can come to pass where people die. Does that make sense? You got to take it that way. But the thing is the trumpets had blown on day 1261 still. The ball is rolling. Joel 2:6. Before their face the people shall be much pained, and all their faces shall gather blackness. Now that's Joel 2:6. So I'm going along with Joel a little bit on this because Joel gives them interesting details of the same event that's happening in Revelation 9. So it's great to have the additional information to be able to see more details of what's going to be happening per what this judgment. Joel 2:6 needs a little work. Instead of the expression before their face, I'll insert in their presence. Okay? It means the same thing, but it has a more clear interpretation or understanding. The expression is still referring to the strong and great locust people. Since the pronoun there refers to this great and strong locust people, then the people mentioned are those running from them who do not have the seal of God on their forehead. Allegory or literal. And it's understandable, right? You can decipher that. And the face of the people, right? All right. The translators have used the word pain for the Hebrew tool, which is defined as twist, travail, to be in anguish. And as we learned in Revelation 6, black means anguish. All right. So the black horse meant anguish. The translators use the word blackness for the Hebrew word parul, which is defined as flush of anxiety, right? Anguish and anxiety, blackness, right? So this is better translated to say, in their presence the people shall be much travailed, all faces shall be flushed with anxiety. So I guess the black horse in Revelation 6 was of anxiety, right? So in their presence shall the people be much travailed, all faces shall be flushed and with anxiety. Is that a little bit more easy to understand than before their face the people shall be much pained, all faces shall be gathered? Before their face, okay, before their face he's talking about in their presence. So in their presence of the great and strong locust people, the people shall be travailed, all faces shall be flushed with anxiety. That's what that verse says. So all the people who come into the presence of the great and strong locust people will have their face flushed of anxiety. Joel 2:7. They shall run like the mighty men, they shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march until everyone in his ways, and shall not break their ranks. Now, in Joel, The topic between verse 2 and 9 is talking about the great and strong locust people. Okay, so before their face, the great and strong locust people. So we're still working on the previous verse. There refers to this pronoun refers to the previous verse before their face. So he's still talking to the great and strong locust people. Before their face, the people shall be pained. Right. So he continues here. They, the great and strong locust people, he's still talking about them. You have to understand that. He's not talking about the people here, which you could say, oh, the previous noun was the people. No, the previous, or what's going on here is the topic of the entire 7 or 8 verses is the great and strong locust people. And they shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war. They shall march everyone in his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. These people that fleeing aren't doing this. These are the great and strong locust people of Revelation 2 and Joel 2. Or excuse me, Revelation 9 and Joel 2. My bad. The pronoun they still refers to the great and strong locust people from Joel 2. The description of these people seems to be that of a well-disciplined war machine. They will be ultimate fighting soldiers who will never break rank, and they march through their conquest. They will climb as though they were well-trained Marines and march one with another, as if they had been seasoned war veterans. God will prepare them for this battle, and fighting God's war is what they will do. They are God's army. They are walking in their ranks. They have one purpose: to torment men for 5 months. I should say men and women for 5 months. Very, very frightening. Glad I won't be there. All right. And the people that have the seal of God on their forehead are tribulation saints who come to the Lord during the 7 years. Just going to put that out there for you post-trib, mid-trib believers of the rapture. The rapture had already happened here. These are believers that come to the Lord after the fact, who were converted by the preaching of the 144,000. All right, Revelation 9:6. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. There's the verse that shows you that God has taken death from the planet. Nothing can die. Nothing can die. Not even the great and strong locust people. So the tormentors cannot be killed, and they go on tormenting, and the people that want to die because the torment is so bad cannot kill themselves. John indicates the men will seek death during the 5 months and will not find it. Therefore, going to the next trumpet judgment, the 6th trumpet judgment where there's a bunch of death, that has to happen after these 5 months. See how day 1 of the 7 years, of the second half of the 7 years, all happens at the beginning and prolong and keeps going upon the judgments when the trumpet blows. But trumpet 6 cannot start on day 1261 because it has to wait until the 5 months has expired. Interesting stuff, huh? Because that's just the way it falls. According to Joel 2:8, even the great and strong locust people will not be capable of death. Because he says, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. He's talking about the great and strong locust people in Joel 2:8. The people will be fleeing from their tormentors for 5 months, desperately trying to avoid their scorpion-like stings. They will not be able to kill themselves in order to end their torment. Neither will they be able to kill their tormentors. This will be 5 months of hell on earth. It will be literally. I mean, when I say literally, hell is torment, continuous torment. And that's what these people are going to be experiencing, continuous torment. Joel 2:9. He's talking about, excuse me very much, he's talking once again about the great and strong locust people. They shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the wall. They shall climb up in the houses. They shall enter in the window as a thief. The great and strong locust people of Revelation 9, once again. These great and strong locust people will run from city to city while seeking to torment the wicked people of the earth. They will be supernaturally charged and will be able to run and jump upon any and all walls. The wicked will not be able to hide from them. These strong and great locust people will be able to climb upon the rooftops of the houses, as well as climb through any and all windows. They will enter in like a thief enters into a house. Imagine, no one can die, and these supernaturally trained charged fighting machines will determine to sting each wicked person with a sting like a scorpion strike. The people will be running and hiding in order to elude from being stung again and again and again and again and again and again. It's going to be terrible. Revelation 9:7. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. On their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were faces of men. See how Joel's locust people, the great and strong people, come into play here? Goes right along with Joel. John goes right along with Joel. These are people. They have faces of men. They are locusts, though, that have faces of men. The appearance of them is the appearance of horses, and as the horsemen, so they shall run. Joel says this in 2:4. So Joel says, the appearance of them is the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so they shall run. John says, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and their heads were as were crowns like gold. So the faces of men, crowns on their head, bodies of a horse. And then they have wings, like the locusts. John describes the locusts will have the faces of men, people, and their shapes like horses. Then Joel describes the great and strong people from Joel 2:2 having the appearance of horses and as horsemen. These horse-like, great and strong locust people will be running after the heathen, who will not have the seal of God on their foreheads, so they shall run. While Joel is called them great and strong people in Joel 2:2, John confirms they will have faces of men. Revelation 9:8. And they had hair as the hair of a woman, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions. Now, though Joel does not provide any information concerning their golden crowns of Revelation 9:7, nor the long hair of women, nor their teeth of lions, we must conclude that these great and strong locust people will be fierce looking. So it's extra information here by John that Joel didn't have, just as Joel has extra information that John doesn't have. Together, we're getting a more complete visual of what's going to be happening. Praise the Lord for giving us this. He gave us information that we need to bring together. We're bringing Joel, the prophet of the Old Testament, together with John, the apostle of the New Testament. Revelation 9:9. And all they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron. And the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. This is amazing too. Look at Joel 2:5. Like the noise of chariots, right? Sound of chariots, noise of chariots, on the tops of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of the flame of fire that devours stubble, as the strong people in battle array, breastplates. Look at that. Battle array, breastplates. The wings, their wings. So they had wings like a locust, right? And the noise of the wings, as Isaiah had said, they had made a noise from the pit, like a noise of a flame of fire devours the stubble. So the wings, Joel gives you a description of these wings. John says the noise is like chariots of many horses running to battle. The noise of chariots at tops of mountains, so the noise of the flame of fire devours the stubble. Right? And the strong battle arrays. So Joel 2:5, Revelation 9:9. Bingo. Once again, the similarity to what Joel had been shown in Joel 2:5 matches very closely to what John had been shown. Joel was told that these strong, great people will run like the noise of chariots, while John was shown that the locust people from the pit made the sound of chariots of many horses with their wings. Like the noise of chariots and tops of mountains shall they leap. All right, Joel describes that the great and strong people were as though they were set in battle array, while John has shown that they had breastplates like iron upon them. Joel implies that their noise was like a flame of fire devours the stubble, and while John said their wings sounded like chariots of many horses. Right? The similarities are almost exact in description of the strong, great locust people, and which the world had never seen nor ever will. Okay, this is all literal. It's not allegory. All right, it's literal. There's no allegory here. He's giving you imagery, somewhat of description, so that you can have an example of what he's trying to describe. It's not an allegorical description. It's a description to give you an idea of what is being seen and heard. All right, and so there's a difference between a description of the literal and a description of the allegory. This is not a description of the allegory. This is all a description of the literal, so that you have an example or an idea of what to expect, or to know what to see, or what is going to happen. All right, scary stuff, because people that read chapter 9 in Revelation think it's imagery or allegory, and there's going to be some animal, or some people that or so this locust. I mean, it's going to be scary. So when people read Joel 2, they have no idea that it's correlated with Revelation 9. But now you do. Praise God, you know. Hopefully you show it to others. Revelation 9, verse 10. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months. All right. I'm going to make an interruption. I hadn't told this yet, and I haven't said anything in the first 9 videos. Nobody's doing any likes on my pages. Nobody subscribing to my YouTube channel. You guys know we all benefit from this. So if you're liking what I'm teaching you, can you hit like? Because you're learning. I mean, this is stuff that you can't say I'm wrong. It's too close to being correct. I mean, it's obvious when you compare the two. I'm a teacher and I'm teaching you this. Please hit like on my YouTube channel, on my videos. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can get a status change on trying to do things here on YouTube. I've had the YouTube channel for, 2008, 12 years, but I had the status at one time. I had a lot of traffic, and then I went away, went to school, did 5 years of college, seminary, came back, wrote books, and here I am now trying to teach, and I've lost my good status with YouTube as far as a lot of traffic. So I need this traffic, guys. Please help. All right. John provided some additional details about the great and strong locust people. Their weapon is finally revealed here in verse 10. They will have tails like a scorpion and will be able to sting their victims with a strike of a scorpion. All right. So the weapon hadn't disclosed it. They just said they had a sting. You didn't know how they stung. They did say that it was like a scorpion, but didn't say that they had tails. So here we now know there is a tail on these guys. Their power is to be the sting of a scorpion would. All scorpion stings, while inflicting their venom is a neurotoxin, which is a chemical that affects the nervous system, ultimately killing or paralyzing their prey. These great and strong locust people will not be able to kill the people of the earth for the full 5 months. Thus, their venom will inflict pain and affect the nervous system of their victims without death. That just makes it even more gruesome, doesn't it? Because you want to die. Oh, this is terrible. Please kill me. And you won't be able to be. It's just terrible. It's terrible. Revelation 9:11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, which name is in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue have his name Apollyon. Okay. The great and strong locust people, they will have a king over them. He is the angel from the bottomless pit, hell. Now that's not Satan. Please do not think that this is Satan. Satan is still in heaven. Satan is still in front of the throne of God the Father and accusing us. He's the accuser. He's the accuser. In fact, I want to say he does fall from heaven on this same day, this day here. But on this day, this angel, angelos, cherub, comes from the bottomless pit. Satan doesn't come from the bottomless pit, people. He comes from heaven, cast from heaven on day 1261, which you'll find out in Revelation 12. Who is most likely one who commands and torments over the souls sent in hell? That's who I think it is. He is the commander of the tormentors in hell. These tormentors, the great and strong locust people, are coming up out of hell. Gosh, the people in hell are loving that because there's less tormentors down there. And the commander of the tormentors is no longer there during this time, 5 months. Though this Abaddon, in the Hebrew, which is in the Hebrew for destruction, or Apollyon in the Greek for destroyer, seems to be of an evil habitat. He works for and is being controlled by the Almighty God of heaven and earth. Apollyon is not of Satan. Apollyon is not of Satan. He works for the Almighty God. He is employed by God. He works for God. He is a servant of God. God is pouring this wrath upon the earth. He's not using Satan to do it. He is using Satan to deceive people. But the deceiver isn't doing this work here. It's the great and strong locust people led by Apollyon. In the Greek it means destroyer. God sent them. Though the satanic realm claims the king to be their god, Satan, it is actually God's army who Abaddon lords over, right? He and his army are doing God's work in the punishment of the wicked, all right? And there's those of you that don't think that God doesn't punish people. God doesn't inflict pain. God doesn't do this or that. How ignorant can you be? I mean, God's word says he does it. He says it right here. I mean, in Revelation chapter 9, God's inflicting this pain, not Satan. God's doing this. He's tormenting the wicked. All right? It says it right here. Yet people blindly go, no, that can't be the God I worship. I'm sorry, but my God is 100% sovereign, and he's the God I worship. And I'm not his judge. Whatever he feels is righteous is his to say. And so he chooses to inflict pain on the wicked. So be it. It's his righteous judgment. All right, Revelation 9:12. One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes hereafter. Notice there were three woes that in Revelation 8:13. Three trumpets that had come. So here you say one woe, one trumpet has passed, right? The fifth trumpet passed after 5 months. Right? John is told the first woe of the warning is past. There is then further notification that there are still two more woes. Two warnings, meaning two more trumpet judgment are yet to come. Does that make sense? All right. So it isn't real clear when you say one woe passed. What woe? What do you mean? Well, you got to put it together where the woes were and why the woes were there. They were warnings. 3 more trumpets to come, and they're terrible. One trumpet's done. One woe is past. All right. 9:13. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. All right, let me step in here again. The sixth trumpet sounds on day 1261, even though they're blown on day 1261. And I'll show you why I determine that when we hear something said by the Lord concerning the 7th trumpet. All right, and when I tell you about the 7th trumpet, you'll go, oh, that has to be. So they're all being blown on day 1261. Now the events don't transpire exactly in place here. The 5 months had to happen before the day after the 5 months that the 6th trumpet could start into play. That's why when those 5 months expire, one woe is past. Even though the trumpet blew, the woe hadn't happened yet. The judgment hadn't happened yet. The 5 months hadn't happened yet. Now the 5 months happen, so the first warning is done. The 5 months has passed. Next warning comes into play. Next woe. The sixth trumpet can now start. It's already been blown, but the judgment starts on 5 months and 1 day later, right? After it was blown. That is the theology on this. You have to understand that. And it all falls into place with this logic. And I'll show you as this goes. Because when I was first doing this hermeneutics, sorry, I got allegory in my brain. I was starting to think differently. And then when I saw what was being said about the seventh trumpet, I go, wait a minute now. And I said, this is all happening on day 1261. It has to be, because chapter 11, chapter 12, chapter 13 all happen on day 1261. And so it all starts falling into place. So please bear with me. It'll fall in place once certain events happen. You go, I see. So I know there's a little confusion here, but take my word, it'll become more clear as we go. All right. I had to throw that in here. All right. So the sixth angel sounds. And I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. The 4 horns of the golden altar, are the sacrifice of the sacrifice, was the place where the blood of atonement was sprinkled. Okay, you'll see that in Exodus 29:12 and Leviticus 4:4 and 17. These 4 horns are symbolic of the 4 attributes of Jesus, the Messiah, which are his humanity, his kingship, his divinity, and his righteousness. With that known, then the voice which comes from the golden altar is none other than from the Lamb, Jesus. So listen, I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar, which is before God. That's Jesus. The voice from the golden altar. The 4 horns. The four symbolic characteristics of the Messiah. So the voice is the Messiah. All right. This is hard to pick up. I'd had to do some research on this. I did some research on it. There are those in agreement with this, because you have to go back into Exodus and Leviticus. You have to go and kind of investigate the golden altar and the horns. There were 4 horns on the altar, believe it or not. And so in the temple, the first couple of temples. So on that altar in the temple, the 4 horns, what did they represent? That's what you had to research. I researched it and found that they were the 4 horns symbolic to the attributes of the Messiah. And that all makes sense then. This is the Messiah saying this. And so hear this. This is what Jesus says. Saying to the 6th angel, which had the trumpet. Okay, he's telling the 6th angel, loose the 4 angels who are bound in the great river Euphrates. Okay, so Jesus is saying to the 6th angel, so obviously this is God commanding the 6th angel of the trumpets, loose the 4 angels who are bound in the great river Euphrates. Does that make sense? This is Jesus commanding this. All right. As discovered in the previous verse, the voice speaking from the 4 horns of the golden altar was the Lamb, Jesus. He commanded the 6th angel, who sounded the 6 trumpets. These 4 angels, cherubs, by the way, cherubim, had been bound for the sole purpose to someday be let loose upon the earth in order to kill the wicked. They've been bound from the beginning until this day. All right? Their sole purpose, God created them and put them in chains. They could, when I say created them, initially, he had control over the creation. He created everything. These could be the ones that faced judgment from the past that got put in chains. These 4, upon their wickedness, was put in chains. It could be, but they only do what God commands. All right. The fact that they had been bound and not free would mean that they had fallen. There was no written information which specifically explains their sins, nor when such sins were committed. There were the 200 who had fallen and mated with the daughters of men in Genesis 6, 1 through 4, and were bound until their permanent punishment on Judgment Day, Jude 1, 6. These fourfold cherub angels cannot be linked with those 200. And I get the 200 from the book of Enoch, by the way. Otherwise, you have no idea how many angels were bound from that judgment from Genesis 6. So I have to believe that Enoch maybe had it right before people corrupted what he had to say. And I know that Enoch used to be at one time an uncorrupted text, but through the millenniums, people have corrupted the text, and you can't have much faith in it. So there is some history analysis you can be placed on Enoch to be able to understand that some of it you can learn from. I think that 200 is probably correct. God works in round numbers, strangely enough, doesn't he? And he usually has 40 years, things like that. He always does in round numbers. And here it's 200. It sounds legitimately God. Could these four have been shown mercy from God and are being rehabilitated if they perform this task for him? This is just speculation. We will never know until we are on the other side of heaven. All right. So this is just speculation there. The Euphrates River was one of the first four rivers on the earth and existed in the Garden of Eden. You find that in Genesis 2:14. Evil societies have been born on this river, which first originated during the Tower of Babel. The mystery religion of the occult has spread throughout the earth as a result of the dispersing of the world population from that time. The religion is known as the spiritual Babylon, the mystery religion of the occult. Every wicked religion had first descended down from the mystery religion and evolved into all religions of the world, okay, except for obviously Judaism and Christianity. All right, so I've given you information here. Some of it's speculative, some of it is researched. And so you now have what has been said here. I know that I'm very confident that this is Jesus saying this. Very confident. Lose the four angels. Well, the reason for their being bound is yet to be determined, but they are bound. And speculation is that maybe they're being rewarded for doing God's work because of their fall. It could be. You don't know. Well, otherwise, why are they working for God? There had to be a plea bargain going on there. Okay. Revelation 9:15. And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, and to slay the third part of men. Wow. This is literal. Four cherubim were loosed, those same ones from our previous verse, were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year. So think about it. 360-day year, a 30-day month, so that's 390 days between the two. 390 plus 1 day, so 391 days and 1 hour to slay a third part of men. So I'll read it. I'm going to be redundant and repeat it again, but I wanted to show you where I got it from. From what has been disclosed in this verse, the four fallen angels had been predestined to be loose for a specific time frame. They will be let loose to kill 1/3 of the remaining non-believers on the planet. Keep in mind, that's non-believers, not the believers, but the non-believers. This is to be after no one had died for 5 months before it. Okay, see how this falls into place now? They're killing now. Death was taken from the earth for 5 months per the great and strong locust people. They were stinging and tormenting for 5 months. No one could die. Now the sixth trumpet judgment can come into play. The trumpet already blew on day 1261. Now I'm going to read that. The fifth trumpet judgment started on day 1261 of the 1250 days of the 7 years. It will have lasted 5 months or 150 days. This judgment in verse 15 will last 13 months, 1 day, 1 hour. So 13 times 30 390 days plus 1 plus that's 391 days plus 1 hour for this judgment. When this sixth judgment ends, 541 days will have expired of the second half of the 7 years, with 719 days to go until the second coming of Christ. Does that make sense? Read it over. You can pause this video. You can read it over of where I'm deciphering this. We know that the 391 days is the length of time it's going to take to slay the third part of men. Okay? It will happen after 150 days, 5 months times 30 days. So I added up the days, 541 days, starting on day 1261, subtracted 541 from 1260. You remaining days when this trumpet judgment is fulfilled will be with 719 days to go. So 720 days is 2 years. So a day under 2 years to go in the 7 years when this is done. Okay? Until the second coming of Christ. All right. There's your math. Hopefully you understand that. Though the fifth and sixth trumpets will have sounded one right after another, this chapter lays out details which will happen as a result of those trumpets over a duration of time and series of events. John was laying out the results which each trumpet will have brought to the earth. Though those two trumpet judgments are linked one with the other, he heard the sound of the fifth and sixth trumpet on day 1261 of the 2520 days 7-year judgment. Though John had seen the visions as a result of each trumpet, the beginning of the events of the sixth trumpet judgment will have to wait until the 5 months will have expired on the fifth trumpet. Hopefully that's clear. Hopefully you can decipher that, because it's legitimate. You have to piece it together. You have to realize it. I've explained it to you now. Hopefully it's clear to you. If you have to stop and kind of think about it, please do. But it's all been mathematically figured out. All right. I know for a fact that this all starts on day 1261, the 7 trumpets. If you saw Revelations 8, you'll know of the halftime event of the 7 years, and then the 7 trumpets will start to blow. If you don't understand, go to my video on chapter 7. But you'll understand as we go here that it has to all be coming to pass starting in day 1261, the second half. So day 1261 is a very important day for a lot of things to start happening. Another body count is provided in this verse. 1/3 of the earth's remaining non-believers will be killed by this judgment. There is no way of calculating this because we do not have a count on those who had become believers in the 7 years to subtract from the world population to be judged. A guess would be about 1.2 billion would be killed by this judgment, leaving just 2.4 billion left on the planet. That's just a guess. I'm just pulling out of thin air how many got saved, and I'm just speculating. It could be far from reality, but and I'll admit that. I'll admit that I just pulled it out of my behind. Okay, Revelation 9:16, and the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them. This verse reveals there were 200 million horses and horsemen. Figure it out. 200 times 1,000 times 1,000. Figure it out. How many zeros in 1,000 and how many zeros in another 1,000? There's 6 zeros plus another 200. 200 million. 6 zeros. 200 followed by 6 zeros. Can you do that? 200 million. Involved in the killing of the 1/3 of the Earth's non-believing population. So the 200 million horses and horsemen involved in the killing of the 1/3 of the Earth's non-believing population. John implied that he heard the number of them, which was most likely the Lord telling him of the number. He didn't hear, gosh, I hear 200 million of them. He didn't say that. He doesn't say that. He heard the number as if the Lord told him there were 200 million. Okay? Please understand that. He didn't hear 200 million. The Lord said, there's 200 million of them. Okay, thank you, Lord. All right. And thus, this is Revelation 9:17. And thus, I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and jenseth, and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. All right. Many of us have seen the ridiculous comparisons using this description of horses and riders. Some will say that these are Abram's tanks, while others will create drawings of creatures with lion faces spewing fire. So it's kind of funny. I went online looking at what people have deciphered out of this. It's amazing. Abram's tanks. This is a description of Abram's tanks. This is all allegorical description of Abram's tanks. Come on. So far, chapter 9 has given 99% literalness. There's very little allegory in chapter 9. Though there's a lot of allegory in the book of Revelation, chapter 9 is what John's seeing literally. And he's trying to give you visual imagery so you can see what he's seeing in his visions. He's seeing horses in visions, and them that sat on them with having breastplates of fire and jenseth and brimstone, heads of horses with heads of lions, and the mouths that shoot fire and smoke. So he is giving you what he sees, as good a description of what he's seeing as he can. It's not allegory. It is not allegory. And I am one that am adamant about allegory. If there's allegory, I say, come on, guys, this is allegory. Do not do a literal. This is what I'm saying. Do not do allegory. This is literal. John has used horses before, so he knows when to use a horse as a part of his description. Does that make sense? John knows what horses are. Because of the literal indication of the following verses, these horses cannot be representing spiritual movements. These are not spiritual movements. Horses can be allegorically spiritual movements. So if you're using allegory, then it's got to be all allegory. It's not spiritual. This is not a spiritual movement with the horses. It's not allegory. I can't be adamant enough. No color was assigned to the horses, but their heads were of a lion. Okay, usually if you go to Revelation 6 and Zechariah 6, spiritual movements with horses are usually done with colors of horses. All right, that's when you know you're getting into some allegory and spiritualness of it. So there's no color of the horses. All right, the breastplates of fire and jenseth and brimstone. I mean, you can see that there's elements that they're made out of, but no colors. I'm explaining to you right now the difference between an allegorical interpretation and literal. This is literal. Lions represent fierceness and military might. All right. So no color of the horses. The heads were of a lion. Lions represent fierceness and military might. Out of the horse's mouth will come fire and smoke and brimstone. Now, the lions are literal, and God has given them the fierceness of lions through, what's he saying here? Were as. Okay, so the heads of the horses were as heads of lions. So he gave you a comparison here. So the heads of the horses looked like the head of a lion. Okay, so I've seen drawings of it, and some people have done a pretty good job. I mean, heads of horses were as heads of lions. It's literal. It's what John's giving you a comparison so you can visualize what these heads of these horses look like. All right, so they represent the fierceness of lions, as God is wanting to do. That's why he gave them heads of lions, but they are literally lions. Out of the horse's mouth will come fire, which is the lion's mouth actually, smoke and brimstone, which represents where they will have come from. They will come from hell and are made from elements of hell. Hell is made up of fire, smoke, and brimstone. So therefore, they are tormentors from hell once again, and fire, smoke, and brimstone is what they're made from. And they are such a fierceness in hell. They're fire, smoke, and brimstone because that's where they're from. So they're horses with heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire, smoke, and brimstone. No allegory. No allegory. It's literal. These are literally out of the pit. They're out of the pit, the bottomless pit. The riders of these fierce and mighty horses will be wearing breastplates of fire, jacinth, and brimstone. The jacinth is a semi-precious stone and is said to instill wisdom, attract great riches, and possess medicinal properties. Breastplates are the rider's armor, which protects them. With jacinth within the breastplates, the riders will have great resilience and perseverance. Okay, that's what the jacinth is doing for these breastplates. All right. The fire and brimstone within their breastplate represents the rider's resources used to make the breastplates. They lived in hell, and the resources are the fire and brimstone of hell. All right? It's literal. It's literal. It's not allegory. It is not allegory. Please understand. All right. And going back here, I will make this a little more clear here. Here. The lions represent first of all, God gave them the heads of lions because that's what God feels about lions, fierce and a military might, like Babylon. But they literally will have heads of lions. It's just that God gave them the heads of lions because he wants them as fierce as a lion. That's why he gave it to them. Verse 18. But these three was the third part of men killed. By these three was the third part of men killed. By fire, by smoke, and by brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. So, from putting the last three verses together, the four angels, cherubim, will have led 200 million horses with riders out of the bottomless pit, out of hell. The army of 200 million will do the killing, while the cherubim lead them. Ironically, the 1/3 part of the population will be killed by the same three, which will exist through eternity with. They'll exist through eternity with fire, smoke, and brimstone. They will exist at the lake of fire will have fire, smoke, and brimstone. Read Isaiah 34, verse 1 through 6. Or actually, I'm sorry, 1 through 9, where the creation of the lake of fire occurs. Fire, smoke, and brimstone will be the lake of fire. So that is where their eternity will be. They're going to die from fire, smoke, and brimstone, and they will coexist in fire, smoke, and brimstone in eternity. The horses will have fire, smoke, and brimstone spewing from their mouths, which will do the killing. All right? So issued out of their mouths. Literal. No allegory. This is not allegory. These aren't fire coming from a tank. This is literal. Revelation 9:19. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails were like serpents and had heads, with them they do hurt. This statement testifies of both the horses in verse 16 and 17 and the strong great locust people in verse 1 through 10. The horses had only been described the power of their mouths, while the strong and great locust people will have been described as the tails and scorpions of serpent, right? So he's talking about both trumpet judgments here at the same time. Because John is testifying of both the horses and strong locust people, he testifies concerning their leadership as well. The Greek word was translated for the words heads is kapeli, which is also defined as anything supreme, chief, or prominent. Therefore, the power of the horses was their mouths, while the power of the strong great locust people were their tails, and they both had their chiefs and their leadership, and with them 4 fallen angels in Abaddon, they do hurt. So look at it again. For their power is in their mouth, that's the 200 million horses, lions spewing fire and brimstone, and in their tails, the great and strong locust people with the tails of scorpions. From their tails were like serpents, and heads whereas they do hurt. And had heads. Now, heads, like I said, is the Greek word kapel, which means anything supreme, chief, or prominent. So they both had their leadership. With them, they do hurt. All right? And with their leadership, they do hurt. That's how you interpret this verse. And this isn't one being here. And they're not hurting with their heads. If they have serpent tails, they're not hurting them with their heads. The serpents, tails like serpents, they're hurting them with their tails. So you have to decipher. They have to kind of weed through this. So you go back into the original Greek. Well, this makes sense. He's speaking of both the great and strong locust people and then the 200 million horsemen with faces of lions, made of fire and brimstone. They had heads. They had heads being chief prominent beings. All right. So they had Apollyon for the serpents. The great and strong locust people had Apollyon, and the 200 million had the 4 cherubim, their leadership, and with them they do hurt. All right. So that is how you interpret that. So if the Greek is using anything supreme, chief, prominent, it has nothing to do with their tails or their mouths. So that's how you have to decipher that as being with and had leadership, and with them they do hurt. With their leadership, they do hurt. With them, they do hurt. So you can say with them being the power in their mouth and their leadership, and their tails of their like a serpent and their leadership. With them, they do hurt. All right. Revelation 9:20. And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues, yet repented not of the works of their hands, that they should not worship devils and idols of gold and silver and brass and stone and of wood, which neither can see nor hear nor walk. After all the torment and suffering experienced for the 541 days, along with the first 1260 days, the heathen of the earth still refused to repent. These are truly God-haters and love idolatry, their possessions of the world, and the satanic realm that they worship. Though God is merciful, these people seem to be willing to go to the bottomless pit, hell, shaking their fists at God the whole way. Isaiah 44:16. He burns part thereof in fire, which part thereof he eats flesh. He roasts, and he satisfies. Yea, he warms himself and says, Aha, I am warm. I have seen the fire. Isaiah continued with his taunt from Isaiah 44:9-20, when he describes the same carpenter who burns a piece of wood in the fire in order to roast meat for himself to eat. He keeps warm with the fire and acknowledges he is warm as fire burned the wood. Isaiah 44:17 says, and the residue thereof he makes a god, even as a graven image. He falls down into it and worships it and prays unto it and says, Deliver me, for you are my God. Isaiah pointed out the ridiculousness while describing how the same carpenter makes a graven image out of wood, scrap, residue. He falls down and worships the piece of wood, pleading, praying with it to deliver him from its troubles, because it is his God. As ridiculous as this sounds, there have been many who have done exactly what Isaiah had described. All right, so that's how I wanted to explain here from why these people shake their fist at God. They'd rather bow down to their piece of wood they pulled out of a scrap pile and made into a god and bow down to it. Revelation 9:21. Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. It takes a contrite heart. I wonder if that says that. Okay, I have to check that. I might have wrote that. As a continuation from the previous verse, the rest of the people left the earth will not repent of their sins. They are murderers, which is a violation of God's everlasting covenant of Genesis 9:1-17. They worship Satan and fallen angels, That's called sorceries. They commit fornication, not actually sexually, but spiritually with idolatry. They steal from the truth, as well as thefts of the possessions of others. They will not be I guess I did pull that from the scripture. Because I explained it here. There will not be a contrite heart for God among them. The sacrifices of God are broken spirit and broken as a contrite heart. These, O God, will you not despise. You will not despise. So those with a broken and contrite heart, God will not despise. That's Psalm 51:17. God's mercy will be for them while they still live and breathe. But once they give up their spirit from this world, they will lose their chance to repent. All right. So that is basically it. The chapter 9, 5 and 5th and 6th trumpet judgments are very, it can be confusing to people, but very upsetting. I love the fact that God gave us some additional information in Isaiah, and especially in Joel, chapter 2 through 9. That made it all more clear to me, hopefully to you. Wasn't it amazing to see the correlation between how close they are? Nobody ever sees that, and God showed it to me one day. I guess when you're doing a commentary in Isaiah and you're looking for similar information to what Isaiah said, and I found Joel, and then I found it again in Revelation. God, look at this! It was an exciting day to find that. And then I did a commentary on Joel, which is going to be part of a 3-book commentary, which is ready to publish, but I choose to do this one first and publish it first, since we are in the last days and people need to understand the book of Revelation. But I'm going to say shortly after the publication of the book of Revelation of Jesus Christ that I'm doing, I will publish the book that I already have ready on the Bible commentary on Joel, Zephaniah, and Zechariah, which is an amazing correlation between the three. So please like my page or like the video, and subscribe to my channel so that I can get some credits here. I want to establish credit with YouTube again like I had before. If you disagree with me, check Sabo at hotmail.com. Let me hear it. I'm not going to argue with you, though. I'll teach you. I'm a teacher, but I don't argue. Okay? That is a sin, by the way, to argue. Arguing scripture is a sin. And so if you're trying to argue, please don't. You want to tell me your pastor knows more than me? Please don't. That is sin. I'm a teacher. I'm teaching you what I know. Ignore it. You can ignore what I taught you. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Thank you for joining me today. I'll be back tomorrow with chapter 10. Very good chapter, too. I liked the study of chapter 10. Until then, God bless you. Enjoy the rest of the day.